Google may have just changed the internet, not because it released a new AI model, not because it launched another chatbot, and not because artificial intelligence suddenly became smarter overnight. The real story may be much simpler. The click, a tiny action that billions of people perform every day without thinking about it. A click on a search result, a click on an article, a click on a website, a click on a source. For more than 20 years, that single action helped power the economic engine of the modern internet. And now, that engine may be changing. Most discussions about AI search focus on technology. People talk about models, capabilities, competition, accuracy, performance. But technology is often the visible layer of a much deeper story. The deeper story is incentives. Whenever incentives change, behavior changes. When behavior changes, markets change. And when markets change, entire industries can be reshaped. That is why the most important question about AI search is not whether it is better than traditional search. The most important question is what happens to the economic system that funded information creation in the first place. For decades, the internet operated on a remarkably simple exchange. Someone had a question. They opened a search engine. They searched for information. They clicked a result. The website received a visitor. That visitor generated value, sometimes through advertising, sometimes through subscriptions, sometimes through affiliate commissions, sometimes through products and services. Regardless of the monetization model, the principle remained the same. Traffic created opportunity, and opportunity created incentives. The more useful information you produced, the more likely people were to discover it. The more people discovered it, the more likely you were to build a sustainable business. This system encouraged millions of people to publish information. Writers, journalists, researchers, analysts, bloggers, educators, businesses, independent creators, each participant contributed information because there was a potential reward. The internet became one of the largest knowledge networks in human history because economic incentives encouraged participation. Information was not free, but the economics made information creation worthwhile. Most users never thought about this system, and that is understandable. The process felt natural. You searched, you clicked, you read, you moved on. But behind every article was an investment. Someone spent time, someone spent money, someone invested expertise, someone accepted risk. Every useful piece of information required resources. The internet looked free because users rarely paid directly, but someone always paid the bill. Someone always funded the work. That reality becomes important when we examine what AI search changes. Traditional search was built around discovery. The search engine helped users find information. The website delivered information. Both sides benefited. The user received answers. The website received traffic. The relationship was imperfect, but it created a relatively balanced ecosystem. AI search introduces a different model. Instead of helping users find answers, AI increasingly provides answers directly. Instead of sending users somewhere else, the answer arrives immediately. Instead of opening multiple websites, users may never leave the search interface at all. For users, this is incredibly attractive. The experience is faster, the experience is simpler, the experience is more convenient. And convenience usually wins. History shows that users tend to adopt solutions that reduce effort. If AI search removes friction, people will use it. That should not surprise anyone. The challenge emerges when we look beyond user convenience and examine the incentives underneath. Imagine a publisher investing months into original research. Imagine a journalist conducting dozens of interviews. Imagine a creator spending weeks producing educational content. Imagine an analyst collecting data and building reports. Under the traditional model, that effort was connected to traffic. Traffic represented the economic reward. But if users increasingly receive information without visiting the original source, that relationship begins to weaken. The creator still bears the cost. The publisher still bears the cost. The researcher still bears the cost. But the flow of traffic becomes less predictable. That creates uncertainty, and uncertainty changes behavior. When incentives weaken, participation often changes as well. This is why the biggest AI search story is not SEO. SEO is simply where the symptoms become visible first. The deeper issue is information economics. Who pays for expertise? Who pays for journalism? Who pays for research? Who pays for the continuous production of high-quality information? For years, the answer was relatively straightforward. Traffic funded the system. Attention became revenue. Revenue funded future content. The cycle reinforced itself. Now that cycle is being challenged. And whenever a foundational economic mechanism changes, the consequences extend far beyond a single industry. Some organizations are likely to adapt successfully. Large technology platforms appear particularly well positioned. The more time users spend inside their ecosystems, the more valuable those ecosystems become. More engagement creates more opportunities. More opportunities create more value. The platform captures a larger share of attention. Attention has always been valuable. In the AI era, it may become even more valuable. This creates an interesting shift. Historically, search engines acted primarily as intermediaries. They connected users with external destinations. Now they increasingly become destinations themselves. That transition may sound subtle, but economically it is enormous. The destination usually captures more value than the intermediary. Strong brands may also benefit from this transition. When information becomes abundant, trust becomes scarce. Users need ways to determine which information is credible. AI systems face the same challenge. As a result, recognized brands may gain advantages. Established publishers, trusted institutions, recognized experts, organizations with strong reputations. These entities already possess credibility. And credibility becomes increasingly important when information is summarized and synthesized by AI systems. This does not mean smaller creators disappear, but it may mean that reputation becomes a more important competitive advantage than ever before. Another potential winner is the audience owner, the creator who owns direct access to their audience, the business that maintains direct relationships with customers, the publication that controls its own distribution, newsletters, podcasts, communities, membership businesses. These models become increasingly attractive because they reduce dependency on third-party platforms. A newsletter subscriber does not require a search engine. A podcast listener does not require a search ranking. A community member does not require algorithmic discovery. Direct relationships create resilience, and resilience becomes valuable during periods of technological transition. This may be the most important lesson in the entire story. The future is not simply about content creation. It is about distribution. Many people focus on producing information. Far fewer people focus on controlling distribution. But throughout history, distribution has often determined who captures the greatest value. Creating information matters, reaching people matters, maintaining trust matters, building relationships matters. The organizations that succeed during major transitions are often the ones that understand this distinction. They do not simply create value, they create systems for delivering value. For more than 2 decades, search engines represented one of the most powerful distribution systems in the world. Entire industries emerged around search traffic. Businesses optimized for visibility, publishers optimized for rankings, creators optimized for discoverability. The rules were relatively clear. If you produced useful information and understood distribution, you could participate in the system. AI search changes some of those rules. And whenever rules change, power changes. Some participants adapt quickly, others struggle. That pattern repeats throughout economic history. Technology changes, incentives change, behavior changes, markets change. The internet is not exempt from that process. For professionals, creators, and entrepreneurs, this shift carries practical implications. Relying entirely on one source of distribution becomes increasingly risky. Owning audience relationships becomes increasingly valuable. Trust becomes increasingly important. Brand becomes increasingly important. Expertise remains important, but expertise alone may not be enough. Visibility matters. Credibility matters. Distribution matters. Organizations that combine expertise with audience ownership may possess significant advantages in the years ahead. This is why the phrase answer economy matters. For most of the internet's history, value flowed through links. Users clicked sources, sources received attention, attention generated revenue, revenue funded future information. The system functioned as a link economy. AI search introduces a different possibility, a system where answers become the primary destination, a system where platforms capture a larger share of attention, a system where traffic becomes less central to information consumption, a system where economic incentives begin to shift. That does not automatically mean the system becomes worse, but it does mean the system becomes different. And different systems create different winners and losers. Nobody knows exactly how this transition will unfold. New business models may emerge, publishers may adapt, creators may discover new monetization strategies. Markets are remarkably good at evolving over time, but transitions are rarely painless, and transitions often reveal hidden dependencies that were previously ignored. The click may be one of those dependencies. For years, it appeared ordinary, routine, almost invisible. Yet that small action quietly connected information creation with economic reward. It connected expertise with opportunity. It connected knowledge with revenue. And it helps sustain the information ecosystem that billions of people rely on every day. The biggest story in AI search is not that Google is improving search. The biggest story is that Google may be changing the economics of information itself. Because when clicks become less important, the consequences extend far beyond websites and rankings. They affect incentives, they affect business models, they affect creators, they affect publishers, and ultimately they affect the future structure of the internet. The internet is not simply becoming smarter, it is becoming different. And we may be witnessing the early stages of one of the most important economic transitions in the history of the web. The transition from a link economy to an answer economy. The real question is no longer whether that transition has begun. The real question is who will adapt first.